Hey everybody, I'm going to do a Devious Maids review. This is for last night's episode, Season 2, Episode 12. Okay, so we start off, of course, with Marisol. This last episode, we saw Opal shoot herself right in front of Marisol. Marisol is asking Nick question. She's asking him, what happened? What did Opal have over you? Because she knows now that Oprah pushed Dahlia off the bridge, and despite that, Nick still kept her under his employment. So she wants to know, what did she have over you? Nick doesn't admit to anything. He sort of hints that he did something, but he doesn't really he doesn't give any details of what it was. Then we go to Zoila. We transition to Zoila. She wakes up in bed with her husband. And she's like, did we have sex last night? And he's like, no. And he fakes her out because he pauses after he says no. And then he says, we made love. And she's like, oh God. It gets worse because Valentina comes to the door. And Zoila has 2 cups of coffee. And Valentina thinks that Zoila has had Javier over. And she's like, well, I think that's great that you're moving on. Poppy left you, and she's just like really supportive of her because she thinks it's Javier. But ding dong at the door, there's Javier, and he's got a breakfast treat for Zoila, and Valentina like, okay, what's the heck's going on here? And Zoila rushes Javier outside, and the food tastes better outside. And so she rushes him outside, and then out of the back comes Valentina's father, and Valentina's like, what the heck? And he's like, your mother and I are back together. Okay, so that's a mess there. And so on to Genevieve. She goes to see Adrian about a kidney because we know that Genevieve is having some kidney problems and needs a transplant. I don't know why she bothered to ask Adrian for anything because obviously he wasn't going to give her nothing. He wouldn't even let her use his yacht when she asked. He says, if there's anything else I can do for you, I would do it. And then she has to kind of borrow your yacht, and he's like, no. A waste of time there for her to ask him for anything. Okay, and then we go on to Ty, who is just like, he's out of his mind. He's bonkers. Other than Opal, he's like the other bonkers character for the season. And he's like rattled because they're searching Ethan's locker at school. And he and Ethan has not in this episode, so obviously he's gone AWOL because Valentina went to the cops about what happened as far as her knowledge of him being involved in that robbery ring. And on to Carmen. There's a knock at the door for Spence's mansion, and it's one of Perry's assistants, and he has Perry and Spence's baby Tucker, and he says, well, Perry's nanny got arrested in Italy for shoplifting, so the baby has been sent back for Spence to care for. And Carmen does not want to take care of this baby at all. She doesn't know what she's doing, but she takes it because she knows how much Spence wants his baby back. And she's like, well, where's his cage? And the assistant's like, do you mean his playpen? So obviously this is going to be a very wild ride for Carmen. So after that, Carmen and Rosie, Lucy, Carmen and Rosie and Tucker. And she's trying to get Rosie to take care of the baby, but Rosie can't because she's trying to figure out this whole mess with Kenneth and Reggie, and so she can't do it. And so Carmen's gonna have to figure out how to take care of this kid herself. And from there we transition to Zoila and Valentina is telling Zoila, well, you need to tell Javier the truth about what happened. You can't do this. You know how you felt when Poppy left you for that other woman, and you're basically doing the same thing now that Poppy did to you, so you need to tell Javier the truth. And Zoila's like, why did I raise you so well? She knows Valentina's talking a lot of sense. She doesn't really want to hear it, but Valentina gets through to her and she's like, okay, I'll tell Javier. Okay, so she's presumably going to do that. And so we transition on to Rosie, who meets up with Lucinda and Dee Dee. And Lucinda's like, well, I don't even know why I came here. You got me thrown out the house. And then Dee Dee arrives, and Lucinda's like, hello, syphilis. And then Dee Dee snaps back, shouldn't you be somewhere at an all-you-can-eat buffet? And so Rosie sort of like tries to get them on the same page, and you know, she explains what happened, how Reggie played her and into saying things that would get both of Lucinda and Dee Dee thrown out the house so he could steal all of his uncle's money. And so they get on the same page there. And then Marisol, she is at Opal's apartment. And she's digging for some evidence to find out exactly what Nick did and what Opal had over him. And so the landlady comes in and she's like, well, hey, it's a little early to be picking through Opal's stuff. But the landlady, she's got her eye on this vase. Hey, that's a very expensive vase and all that. But Marisol sort of shoos her away and keeps digging through the stuff. And then we go to Zoila and Javier. And Zoila's trying to tell Javier all about this tryst that happened. And before she can get it out, he's like, I'm taking you to Paris. And she's like, because she had mentioned that she wanted to go to Paris. And so obviously she does not tell the truth because she wants that trip to Paris. Of course, it couldn't have been that easy. She couldn't have told the truth that easily. There had to be that obstacle there, and Paris was a big enough obstacle that she was not going to tell it. Nobody's going to pass up Paris. Come on now. Okay, and so Carmen is struggling with this kid, and she gets a call to an audition. And she tries to reschedule, but that's not working, so she drags the kid to the audition. And there's this other girl coming out of the audition, and she asks her, well, will you watch my kid for a second? And the girl's like, are you auditioning for the commercial too? And Carmen says yes, and the girl's like, then. And I said, well, Carmen, what you expect? Your competitor is obviously not going to lend you a hand, so you can go in and do the audition and possibly nail it. So Carmen is confused and doesn't know what to do. She's late for her audition. And so next thing we see her walking into the audition room. She starts singing, doing a little dance and doing her thing for the commercial. And so we hear the baby start crying, so Carmen starts singing louder and louder, trying to cover up the baby crying, but the producer can't ignore that baby crying, so they go out to the lobby and she says, oh, is this your child? What kind of monster are you? Because Carmen has the kid strapped to a chair. I'm like, come on now, Carmen, that was wrong. So obviously that's one part that Carmen was not going to get. And so and so Zoila and Jean-Pierre, we go to them, and they have a conversation about, at first Zoila's like, Jean-Pierre is wondering if Javier has told Zoila about the surprise, and obviously he has, but then they get into Jean-Pierre's kidney issues, and Zoila says, well, why don't I get tested? And Jean-Pierre said, well, I didn't want to ask you, I didn't want you to feel like I was forcing you. And Jean-Pierre's like, well, we're sisters, and you know how I feel about you. It's not a problem for me to go get tested. And so they hug and everything over that, and then we go to Marisol, and she's back at the apartment building. She's turning in the keys to the landlady because she forgot to turn them in. And the landlady is like, she says, she takes the keys, and then there's a big silver one, and she's like, well, this silver one isn't mine. And it's to a safe deposit box at the Beverly Pacific Bank. And Marisol takes the key, and the landlady's like, "Hey, you shouldn't be trying to throw into somebody else's safe deposit box. That's not honest." And then Marisol checks her. She looks in her apartment. She says, "That vase looks familiar." And so the landlady's like, "Bye," and closes the door. So landlady's like, "Okay, you do whatever you want. I'll do what I want. I'll stay." So it's like she's not in it after Marisol spots that vase, and I knew that landlady was gonna get that vase because she was like, before she was like, she was really liking that vase. Okay, and so now we transition to Rosie, Reggie, Lucinda, and Dee Dee. Okay, so Rosie is like, she's at the mansion there. She's quitting her job, and she's saying like, "I don't want any part of this. I'm not going to say anything," and such and such and such. And she's acting like she's just washing her hands of the whole situation. And Reggie's like, "I trust that you'll keep your mouth shut." And she's like, "Well, of course, because I don't want me and my son to end up sent back to Mexico." And so he presumably buys it, and Rosie goes outside and gets in the car with Lucinda and Dee Dee, and she's like, "He's so stupid." Okay, so that's the setup to that. And then we go to Zoila and Pablo. And Pablo's like, he thinks everything is resolved just because they rolled around one night. I'm like, come on, dude. You don't get back together just because you rolled around for one night. That's not how things work. And Zoila's like, she's like, she was hurt by him just letting her go like that. And he's like, well, you can't throw away 20 years of memories. And she's like, I don't want to do that. But she's like, she doesn't know what she wants. And she wants to go to Paris first. And she's like, we'll talk about this after I get back. And so Pablo's like, he's not going to let this go. And so we go to go back to Rosie, and she's about to bust. This is when she busts Reggie. And so earlier when she quit, she had another maid come in. She said she called the agency. I had another maid come in. Turns out that maid was really a forensic accountant, and she went through all of Reggie's computer files and stuff and found out where he was stealing his uncle's money. And so they had already gotten Kenneth out of the hospital, and they had paid off Rosie paid off the security guard by getting him that necklace, and they got Kenneth out of the hospital. Kenneth got his power of attorney back, and they basically, he just says, tells Reggie, I know what you've been doing, and he's got Lucinda and Dee Dee back in his corner, and so they basically just sort of put Reggie out. He's out, and Reggie's like, he's not done. He tells Rosie, I'm going to see to it that you are thrown out of this country, and he leaves. And so that's going to be it's obviously going to be Rosie's big problem in the season finale, which will air next week. And so we go to Genevieve and Remy, and there's a phone call, and the doctor tells Remy that there's been a match made for a kidney for Genevieve, and so Genevieve talks to the doctor and everything, and we see where they transition to the doctor's office, and we see Pablo at the doctor's office, and he's got like this he got this smile on his face, and yeah, I'm gonna get back in. He knows that this is probably his route back in with Zoila. He's gonna save the woman who's like her sister, so how could he not get back in there doing that? Okay, and so Ty he's with the robbery ring, and he's like really rattled, and like earlier in the episode he had tried to prod Valentina for some information over what she told the police about Ethan and how she knew Ethan, and Valentina just says, I don't want to talk about it, but she eventually just says, well, I told the police everything. And so he's rattled like that. He's been rattled like the whole episode about what's going on. And so he tells his fellow robbers, like, well, we need to get rid of Valentina. And I like his crazy is coming back with his crazy's coming on strong. Okay, and the last scene is uh, Marisol is she has that safe deposit box key and she's trying to figure out what to do. And she's meeting with Carmen and she asks her, well, how good are you with makeup? She asks her how good she is with makeup, and so the next thing we see is Marisol down at the Beverly Pacific thing, and she's has this opal wig on. It's hilarious. She's trying to look like opal. This wig was hilarious. I mean, I swear that's like every time in a show someone is crazy, they give them that sort of hairstyle, and that's the kind of hairstyle Opal have, and Marisol has a wig like that. And so Marisol goes to this teller, this old guy who is like can't see very well. She gives him Opal's ID, and he's like, "What, can you take your sunglasses off?" Marisol takes the sunglasses off, and he looks. He can't really see, and he's like, "Well, you're much prettier in person." And Marisol's like, "Thank God for you saying that." So he takes her to the safe deposit box, and she opens up the thing, and she finds an envelope with it's like a bloody piece of clothing or something from a child, and she reads this newspaper article, and she's like, okay, so, and it's pretty much what we suspect, that because from the preview, the Powells are involved in this next week in the season finale. So clearly Nick was the one that ran over Adrian and Evelyn's son. So that's what's going to go down in the season finale next weekend. There, it looks like Spence is going to marry Rosie. I'm guessing he's going to do that because Reggie is trying to get Rosie thrown out the country, and there's going to be a shooting. So that's going to be a very explosive season finale. So that's going to be very worth watching. So, okay, for all of you that tuned into my review, I want to thank you for doing that, and keep watching my reviews. I'm going to review the season finale next week, and also I review the haves and the have-nots. I'm going to be reviewing the remainder of those episodes as they air. So again, thank you and deuces.